Hey everyone, welcome to AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane. Today it's just me, but we do have a special guest coming on a little bit later. And if you're checking out the stream last week, you'll notice I was, a little more absent than normal. So but I'm back. And yeah, we have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking some AI news like we typically do. We're going to talk about the new Mastra course we released last week, but not just, we're not just promoting it. We're going to talk through how we built it. We're going to look through the code and see how it all works and show an example of it actually in action. And then we're going to talk with Ampersand and talk about the Mastra integration that they just released and talk about their MCP server. And we will learn how to connect a whole bunch of tools really quickly to our AI agents that we're building. As always, you can make sure you're following all the Mastra content. You can also follow me on X, smthomas3. And this is a live show. So if you have questions, please drop a comment wherever you're watching this, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and I will try to answer questions as we go. But with that, let's dive into some of the news for today. And some of this is probably review from some of the content that we talked about last week, but I did just want to highlight because I think it's pretty cool. So the first thing, let me share my screen here. You probably heard about this. I'm just going to talk about it briefly, but if you haven't, if you have not watched the stream recently or you have not been paying attention to all the things posted about it last week on X and other places, Cursor released their background agents, which has really come off the backs of a lot of these other tools like Codex and like Jules and even GitHub's kind of agents. The idea is you can run these things in the background. So you can basically spawn an async agent that will edit and run your code in a remote environment. So rather than actually running it, local on your machine, it's running it remotely, similar to, how we've kind of demoed on the past about Codex and how Codex works. But the cool thing about it is you can kind of spin up these agents, let them run, review their work, and then decide if you want to, go ahead and merge it as is, make changes, whatever. But basically, you just use Command E. It opens up the background agent control panel. And then you can go ahead and submit a prompt and just let the thing run. So it's kind of built in right into your IDE. One of the questions, I guess, that I have is I do think that these background agents, it's going to happen where there's going to be some winners, right? It currently doesn't work for all tasks, but last week, one of the cool things that I did is I was using Codex quite a bit, and I was able to, just from my mobile device, I spun up like half a dozen or so tasks that I had on my mind that I knew I wanted to do, but I wasn't going to have time to get to because I was, I guess, quote unquote, on vacation, if you can call me still spinning up tasks for Codex really on vacation. But I was just spinning up, half a dozen tasks, and then I would come in once it was ready, and I'd have it create a PR for me, and then I just review the PR, and I merged a few of them. I just left because I wanted to come back to, but it was a really interesting way to think about how you're just in some ways delegating work, at least I will say the more trivial tasks, the things that you would know how to do well, that you can somewhat describe. I feel like it does a pretty good job on those types of tasks. And I imagine that Cursor background agents would be very similar. If you have certain refactors or certain things that you want to do, and it's just kind of tedious, but you're pretty sure you know how to do it, I think you can provide enough detail, fire it off, and then just review the code rather than you having to write the code yourself. So curious if anyone's used Cursor background agents and could compare it to how their experience was with Codex or any of the other tools. But that's our first story for the day. Next up, there has been a little bit of, I'll call it some drama on X around this research report or this paper that Apple has put out called "The Illusion of Thinking," and it's really talking about reasoning models and some of the limitations of reasoning models. So here it is on the machinelearning.apple.com site, but it also we can actually look at the full report. We're not going to go through the whole thing, of course, but it's here. It's a pretty solid 30 page report or 30-page paper. So it does. I think what my takeaways. So from I haven't read the whole thing, but I've read pieces of it, and I've kind of got some summaries. I guess there's really only if you get through, it's only 10 pages of actual content. It really kind of throws a little shade at the idea of quote unquote reasoning and say how it actually does its reasoning, and basically it talks about how it does break down when it does its thinking. I would say this doesn't surprise me. I do give Apple credit for being the ones to kind of like throw cold water on the fire a little bit. I do think that I've been saying for a while, I think others have been saying that at least questioning is the current generation of how LLMs work really going to get to this deeper level of reasoning that might be needed to achieve something like AGI. And I'm not a machine learning researcher. I don't know the answer, but I do think that if you've used these reasoning models, you kind of understand a little bit of how it works, and you've probably seen that it does break down for some deeper tasks, some really complex tasks. I don't think any of us are probably surprised by that, right? But I would say, I've seen a lot of people saying that this is kind of proof that reasoning models aren't going to work, and I don't think that's the case. I think, in some ways, Apple is maybe putting out some negative things around some of these LMs, because honestly, I think Apple's kind of struggling with how to deal with AI. And if you've used Siri, you'll understand. I think they're way behind, in my opinion. And even though the large reasoning models are not maybe as great for the really complex tasks as what we would all hope they'd be, we want to see them continue to improve. I do think that if you just imagine, even if I always like to just put myself in the shoes of if none of the models got better than they are today, I still think there's a lot of amazing things you can do with these models. So, and they will, of course, continue to get better. How much better? Some people think it's going to continue to accelerate. Other people think maybe there's a natural plateau. Time will tell. But I'm not surprised that they are questioning how reasoning works in these reasoning models, and that they're saying it's not really doing true reasoning. I think that's kind of understandable. It's just layering in next token completion in a lot of cases, but still interesting. Next up, let's talk a little bit about something else that was kind of released, or at least talked about. I think I heard about it last week, but maybe it's getting announced more broadly now, is that OpenAI has updated their voice mode to have a little bit more natural sounding speech. So over the weekend, OpenAI rolled out an update to Advanced Voice, the feature that lets users have dialogue with ChatGPT out loud. So if you've used Advanced Voice mode, it's pretty good, but it's not always perfect. They do have a realistic, apparently more realistic cadence. I've also heard, I've seen, I think it was Swix was trying to sing with with Advanced Voice, and it was kind of bad, but it worked. It honestly did try to sing a song. So you can see that they're continuing to lean into making the voice better. I think this is a very natural way that people are going to want to talk to these assistants rather than just type messages. That way you can be hands-free. You can, it can be what Siri maybe was supposed to be. And so encourage you all to try that out. Curious on if anyone's seen any improvements. I haven't used it enough over the last weekend to know, but I do use Advanced Voice quite a bit. And so I'll be interested to see how much it has actually improved, or how it sounds, and all of that. All right. So for the last, I guess, piece of news that I wanted to discuss, this one's more, I would say, a discussion. So I'll spend a little time kind of talking through this. And it's really around MCP. And we're going to actually spend quite a bit of time talking about MCP today. But this was a post from June 6th, written by Frank Fiegel. And it is MCP versus API. So just the quick summary. Every week, a new thread emerges on Reddit asking about the difference between MCP and API. And honestly, I've seen these too. Like, why do we need MCP? Why can't we just use API? And isn't the Open API spec good enough? So he lays out quite a few reasons why MCP is a good thing for, specifically for using within, AI tools and LLMs. I think one of the things, is that the API, with APIs, you can have a whole bunch of, there's not necessarily a set standards, right? You can have different types of APIs. You can encode them different ways. So you can see there's different ways you might encode it with URL paths, request headers, query parameters, request bodies, and you can document it with OpenAI API or Swagger documents. But it does, it isn't necessarily consistent, right? Not all APIs follow very consistent standards. They try to document those standards, but you do know that there's a whole bunch of different ways that companies will build APIs. So Frank's argument is that MCP is more of a wire protocol that helps enforce consistency. So there's two different types of transports. You can run it locally with STDIO, standard input output, or you can use streamable HTTP. It has discovery, more natural discovery. So it has this idea of tools and resources. So you can get the capabilities of that MCP server at runtime. It has a set of primitives, tools, resources, and prompts. And, there's more. There's some, they've recently introduced more around auth as well, at least in the draft state. So there's a whole bunch that the spec is moving for sure, but you can, of course, check that out. So the question is, why not just use OpenAPI? So the OpenAPI describes while the MCP prescribes. I think this is a very good way to put it. MCP is way more prescriptive. So it's not just about documenting the way you do it. It's saying, no, if you want to use MCP, you have to do it this way. And yeah, maybe OpenAPI could add some of these things, but then you have to worry about adoption. Sometimes it's better to start fresh. So then we'll talk about the 5 fundamental differences. So there's runtime discovery versus static specs. So with an API, you ship new client code when the endpoints change, but with MCP, your agents can query the capabilities dynamically and then adapt automatically. I would say this is the dream. It's not always true in my experience. Like a lot of times you need to have depending on how you write your agents and how you build your system prompts, you do kind of need to know the tools ahead of time for it to really react well. Maybe that'll improve, as we kind of mentioned earlier, assuming models continue to improve, maybe we don't need to do that. But I'd say this is at least the dream. I can see us maybe getting there at some point where with just standard APIs, it's not going to happen. Deterministic execution versus LLM generated calls. So an LLM writes the HTTP request. So I guess saying that, APIs and MCPs, handle this slightly differently. So in the MCP scenario, LLM picks a tool and then that wrapped code executes a little bit more deterministically because it is just kind of a set tool rather than just exposing your LLM and giving it access to querying the API. I think you can be a little bit more structured. Like not every API endpoint maps to an MCP tool. I think sometimes you'd want to combine multiple API endpoints into a single tool. For instance, if you're thinking about the whole like a checkout process, there might be multiple tool calls like add to the cart, insert payment information. There might be ways where you wrap multiple API calls into a single MCP tool call, and you can make that more deterministic. Bidirectional communication is a first-class feature of MCP. I think that one's kind of explanatory. APIs kind of have this depending on what you're using, but it's not necessarily always standard. So REST APIs fragment human tasks across endpoints. Yeah, and this is kind of what I was just saying before. So I guess I was maybe jumping the gun. He already covers this. But yes, like MCP tools are more closely mapped to workflows, which makes sense. Like you would want to give an agent an entire workflow, not just a whole bunch of different things that they have to piece together themselves. And then MCP is local first by design. I mean, originally it was almost all MCP servers were STDIO didn't need any network. I think over time, more and more will use streamable HTTP, and so maybe this becomes less of important. But MCP is nice that it can run both, right? So there's a whole bunch of different. I guess there's a video as well. So we recommend maybe watching that. Some of the Reddit comments. Overall, I just think that it is interesting to think about why we needed MCP. I am not like Frank might even mention this. I don't think that MCP is the perfect spec, but at least it is under constant. It's constantly being improved. There's new drafts, there's new changes, and I do think that it is better than just trying to make APIs work. It's trying to retrofit that. All right. So that is it for our AI news for the day. Is there if there's anything that you think we missed, anything else you'd like to discuss, please drop it in the chat, leave a comment. Again, this is live, so whether you're watching on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever, you can communicate. You can let us know. And the next thing I did want to talk about, so if you're paying attention to some of what Mastra was putting out last week, we introduced this new idea of what we call Mastra 101, so our Mastra course. And I'll pull that up and we'll talk through it a little bit. And this was something that we were kind of really excited about because I guess maybe I'll start with the problem we were trying to solve. So we always wanted to, Mastra is, if you're not familiar with Mastra, Mastra is a AI agent framework for TypeScript. It allows you to build agents and agentic workflows using TypeScript, right? And you can build it locally, deploy it anywhere, and you can more easily, it kind of gives you that framework around like how to think about building agents, giving agents tools, connecting workflows, all those things that you would need if you're kind of building out an AI application. So it's really like meant to be a piece of a developer's toolkit if they're trying to add agentic features to an existing app or build a new app kind of around building an agent. But one of the things that we consistently ran into is we wanted to have some kind of course for people to get started because there are some new concepts and new things. A lot of people have backgrounds similar to others on the Mastra team where we were from the web dev or the app development world. And, we're not machine learning engineers. We're not research, data scientists. We are, we're builders. We like to think of ourselves as builders. We build websites, we build web apps, we build mobile apps. Like that's a lot of our background on the team. And so often, we went through the process of having to learn a lot of these terms, a lot of these new things. And Mastra tries to make it simple by giving you like this set of primitives, but it is still a lot of information to digest. So we wanted to have this course that would allow you to more easily get access to kind of like getting this information really quickly. But one of the challenges with courses, especially when you're working on a framework like what we're working on, where things are changing pretty quick, is that the videos, if it's a standard video course, it gets outdated really fast. And so, of course, you could build a bunch of guides, but the problem with like written guides is not everyone wants to sit and read through the guide and follow step by step. Some people enjoy that, but not everybody. Some people want to watch videos. Some people, everyone learns in different ways. And so we were thinking, what's a different way that we could build this course that would allow us to um, really give people a lot of information relatively quickly, but they could go at their own pace, and then they could kind of get all the basics of Mastra pretty quickly. And so we kind of came around this idea of we're calling it Mastra 101. It's learning how to build agents with Mastra. And there is a video. You can watch this video here. Welcome to the Mastra course. But it's not really a video course. So you have an intro video. There are 3 lessons. There's more lessons to come, but each lesson has kind of it's an intro video as well. And we can kind of go through the lessons. So the first lesson talks about building your first agent, talks about Mastra, has a whole bunch of different lessons here. Then we talk about tools in MCP. You can see there's a bunch of lessons there. And then we talk about memory. So a whole bunch of different lessons here. And the idea is, though, rather than being a video course, this is a course as an MCP server. And what this means is we can actually run this in Cursor or in Windsurf or in VS Code, and it will walk us through interactively the course. So rather than me, in this case, teaching the course, your coding agent in your IDE or your editor is actually teaching you the course. So this is pretty cool because it allows you to, it's in context learning, right? The agent can write the code for you. It can explain it. It can tell you the code to write. You kind of can communicate with the agent like you're communicating with a teacher. So rather than just watching a video and having to go through everyone going through the same learning path, you're actually learning kind of on the spot as you're actually writing the code. So it validates along the way that you're actually doing what each lesson says. So we do want to spend a little time. We have maybe 15 minutes till our guest gets here. So we're going to spend a little time going through this, and then we will kind of show how the course works. And maybe if we have a little time, we'll talk through the code, because the code is open source. It's available on the Mastra GitHub, and you can. Our hope is that others will build more interactive learning experiences like this. We do think this is kind of the future of education. So curious what you all think. Have you tried this yet? What do you think of it? Do you think it would be helpful in learning how to use any new technology, not just Mastra, but any new programming language, any new tools, if you could actually learn in editor rather than having to watch a course and then try to copy it or follow a bunch of written guides. So let's go ahead and let's just take a look at the course in general and see how it works. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to just dive right in. All right. So we're going to start with, give me 1 second to just shuffle around some windows here. All right. So we're going to start with just copying in. I'm going to use Cursor, but you could use Windsurf, you could use VS Code. I will say that, one of the challenges of building a course in this way is that it doesn't work the same in every editor, right? Because each editor has a slightly different way that they've built their code agent. And so I do think, based on our testing, it seems to work the best right now in Cursor. Windsurf, it works pretty well, but it gives you a lot of extra information. So it shows the results of all the tools, and it gets a little messy. The output's a little messy. VS Code seems to be, we haven't tested as extensively, seems to still work, but I would say, based on my experience, Cursor seems to be the best. And so let's go ahead and we're just going to copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this code. This is going to we need to go ahead and follow these instructions, but let's go ahead and just try it out. So we're going to do npm create Mastra at latest. And if you do try this, there has been a few issues with just like the way that npm works and how the latest tag works. So if you are having issues, just try removing the at latest, and that should fix it if you are running into problems. Let's call it Mastra course, June 9th. Okay, so this is going to create us a new Mastra project. And the nice thing about this is it kind of just sets everything up for us. So then we'll open it up in Cursor and we should be able to kick off the actual course. So it's going to take a second here. But if you are tuning in the chat, let me know. Have you tried the Mastra course yet? What do you think of this idea of, a course as an MCP server? So we're going to just follow through the defaults here. And we will select OpenAI. I will skip and just copy in an API key. We'll add an example. And then I am going to install Cursor because that's what I'm using. Okay, so I'm going to go here and then I'm going to open this up in Cursor. Zoom in a little bit. It says new MCP server detected. So I'm going to make sure that this looks the same. You can see here, if I look at what it's asking me, that looks right. So that's what I want it to do. And again, I might have to remove this at latest. We've been having a few little bugs with that, but I'm just going to save this. It's enabled. I am going to copy in an environment file. We're going to make sure, I'm going to delete this one here because I only need the one. All right. So let's go ahead and you can see we have agents, tools, workflows. I can just now, if we look at the documentation, if we were to watch, kind of watch the video, what it'll tell you to do is basically just say to start the Mastra course. So if I watch this video, that's all I need to do is tell it to start the Mastra course. One of the things, if you do run into problems, check out the FAQs. We're going to be adding more. I think MPX has a known caching issue, so we might need to do that. But let's test this out. So we're going to go into Cursor. We're going to say start Mastra course. And I think I might already have a course started. Create a script to start the course. That's not. Based on the code, you set up the Mastra instance, but there's no entry point or script to actually start or run the course. Okay, well, that isn't technically correct. I wonder if it's not view course status. It should be sending my, should be giving me running these Mastra tools, and maybe it's failing because of, like I said, there's that little bit of a caching issue. All right, so it's not quite working. What tools do you have access to? So it feels like this isn't quite working for some reason. Why? I don't know. Let's go ahead and look here, MCP tools. All right, so Mastra, it says 0 tools enabled. Why? Yep, so we're going to try not doing this. We'll just try this. And let's see if this works. I'm going to turn these other ones off. 9 tools enabled. I don't know why it's still showing red, but at least now we have the tools enabled. So step number 1, make sure that the MCP server is actually working. Now let's try view course, Mastra course status. All right, so here now you can see it's actually calling the tool. So it says it's not been started. Great, okay, start Mastra course. Okay, so it's going to ask me for my email. I just want to test this here, so I'm just going to give it my email address with a tag so I know. And it's going to run this tool, so I'm going to tell it to run it. Okay, so it says you're now enrolled in the Mastra course. Welcome to the first step. Tells me what an agent is. Tells me agents are AI systems that can do this. The best agents use several important features like memory, planning, tool use, and feedback loops. All right, so we can just say, when you're ready, move on to the next step. Okay, so I learned some things, but let's go ahead and say view course status while we're here. You're currently on the first lesson. I don't think this is technically right. As you can see, we do call this course experimental for a reason, because it is definitely very experimental. That's not right. Because it should be giving me a unique URL for my specific email at. So maybe I'll need to look and see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can see it probably did return the right. Oh, so it didn't call the tool here. So you see, I told it to view the course status. It didn't actually call the tool because it knew where I was at. The agent tried to be a little too smart, and when it did actually call the tool, it gave me this, which I can see that right here. So let's go ahead and open this. Let's actually open in the wrong tab. So if I go back, now you can see I'm building a first agent. Here's where I'm at. That is right. You can see I can see the other steps. You can see this is where I am currently. So let's go to next step. So this will move me on to the next step. It says you've completed the first step. What's Mastra? It tells a little bit about Mastra, what it has. You can build, test, and deploy AI agents. And there's my course status. Should have just kept going. Next step. And we can see that I should be able to refresh this page, and you can see I'm moving through the course, right? So that is the one nice thing is, and actually anyone could go to this URL. I could share this URL with anybody, or open it up on any browser, because there isn't really any sensitive information here, right? It's just this user's status of where they're at in the course. But it is nice that as I go through the course in my editor, I'm able to see and keep track of my status, so I can see where I'm at. It's kind of provides you that ability to go through it step by step. Okay, so let's go ahead and say, or let's see, so verifying your Mastra installation. We should already have that. We added our API key. So let's go to next step. And yes, thanks. I think this is Tyler. Thanks, Tyler. We got to figure it out, but yes, I definitely had to remove the latest from the args. Okay, so I'll run the tool. So now it's going to verify my project structure. So you can see, we do kind of step through pretty slowly, but it is pretty thorough because it's telling us a lot about Mastra if you were to read through this. There's a source Mastra directory that contains an index. That's where I'm at. Agents directory. And this one's a little bit different. So because we did actually recently change this. So this will be updated. But it talks about, the agents folder is where agents are defined, tools and workflows. This doesn't actually cover workflows yet. That'll be the next lesson. I do also like, once it figured it out, it does tell me the course status URL every time. That's kind of nice. Next step, eventually we'll get to writing some code. The first lesson is a lot of just like information and confirming that everything's set up right. You need to run the Mastra playground. So, okay, I'll listen. I'll go here, npm run dev, and we will check that out. And you can see that as we are going through this, it is basically kind of updating the status as we go. So here we are, the playground's running. I could test this. What's the weather in Sioux Falls, which is where I'm currently at? It calls the weather tool and it gives me the weather. And if we now go back here and look, you can see that it talks about the playground. I can tell it to go to the next step. And it talks about understanding system prompts, gives it tips on what makes a good system prompt. And if we go back and check, you can see that we are still making our way through the course. So, it did get, there are the first like 6 steps you have to go through before you really start writing code, but it's a lot of good background information around, just getting the basics understanding of what Mastra is, and then you're able to eventually get into it. So let's go ahead and say next step. And we're didn't have quite as much time to dig into the code of how this works, but the good thing is this is all open source. It's all in the Mastra repo. So let's create our agent. So it's going to try to create a financial agent. So I'm going to ask it, can you create the agent for me? See if it can do that. So it tells me what I would need to do, but I actually wanted to do it for me. So here we go. Financial agent has been created for you. I could look at it and verify it. Here it is. So you can see, it's way more interactive, right? It's basically teaching me, but it also can write the code for me. It can tell me what it actually did. And then throughout the whole process, I just can continually update and see that I'm progressing through the course. And if I finished this lesson, I could go to this next lesson. I could tell it to jump to the next lesson. Now I can kind of bounce back and forth. But overall, it just gives me a really good kind of hand-holding through all the basic primitives of Mastra. And I guess let us know what you think of this. So if you're in the chat, if you're watching this live, if you're just tuning in, we haven't spent a little time talking about what we think, we could be wrong, but we think this is the first course as an MCP server that we've ever seen. So curious how it's been working for you all that have tried it. We released it last week. Again, just go to mastra.ai/course and it'll walk you through all the instructions of how to get started. And you can try it out. Learn Mastra. Also, see if this is a learning style you like, rather than just watching videos or following guides. If you want in-editor learning inside Cursor or Windsurf or VS Code. All right, and with that, let's move on to kind of the next segment here of our live stream. So for this, wanted to bring in a special guest. So we're going to bring in Lauren here from Ampersand. And Lauren, welcome.
Hey Shane, good to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. I'm excited because I know we are going to be talking about how we can give agents access to even more tools,
That's right.
which is great because anytime, I mean, that's one of the primary things that we get asked questions about is once people understand how agents work and how maybe MCP works, but then they're also wondering, okay, well, where do I find the right MCP servers? How do I give my agent that I'm building access to more tools and more functionality? And that's what we get to talk about today. So I'm excited.
Likewise.
So maybe it'd be good. You want to give a quick intro to yourself and maybe like what you do at Ampersand?
Yeah, definitely. Hey everyone, at live and watching this later. My name is Lauren. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Ampersand. We are a company that helps agent builders, AI builders, SaaS builders connect their apps with B2B integrations. Prior to this, I was a tech lead on the Firebase team at Google. So if you've used Firebase before, you know that is a developer platform for building web and mobile apps. I was the lead of Cloud Functions, which was our serverless offering, our AWS Lambda competitor, as well as I led the launch of a new product called Firebase Extensions, which, as the name suggests, it was all about connecting applications with integrations and other things to extend the capabilities. So integrations, connections, providing external context has been something I've been working on for a long time. So excited to dive into that a little bit more today.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm familiar with Ampersand a little bit because I think that, we in the past we had been evaluating a bunch of different tools for just connecting a bunch of integrations, and you've been doing it for quite a while now. So you have a large amount of integrations and tools available. I guess, yeah. Do we want to talk about the Ampersand MCP server? I know that that's something that you kind of recently been launching, or where would you like to go with this?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to start screen sharing if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, today is a very exciting day for Ampersand because we have a couple of launches. So if you head on over to withampersand.com, go to our blog, you can read all about it. So we have 3 launches today. One is our AI SDK, which I'll demo in a moment, our MCP server, and our headless UI. So AI SDK and MCP server are both open sourced. Headless UI is also open source. All 3 things are open source. And if you go to GitHub, go to github.com/amplab/AI, you'll see our full repo here, as well as links to the docs where you can learn a little bit more. So at a high level, what these tools help you with is get access to all of our integrations. So we have about 150 connectors for connecting your AI agent to B2B applications. So if you're building an agent, especially in the go-to-market space where you need to connect with your customers' CRM, customer support tool, what have you, instead of building those in-house, you can use Ampersand now to get access to over 150 of those applications. So we've actually built a demo app using the Ampersand AI SDK and Mastra to showcase a use case where if you're getting support tickets, you want an AI agent to quickly summarize it, prioritize it so your team can deal with it. We call this app Case Sherpa, and I will quickly walk you through what the code looks like. So if you are familiar with Mastra, you're probably very familiar with how to set up an agent.
And Lauren, can you give us a 1-click a zoom, maybe 2 clicks?
Yes.
That way, for those that are maybe looking on a mobile device or something, they can see it. That looks good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Shane. So you'll see here that we are creating an agent like you're used to, except in this case, the tool that we've defined is actually imported from the Ampersand AI SDK's Mastra adapter. So here we have a tool called Update Record. So this is one of several tools we offer. And if you're curious what all of them are, you can head on over to our documentation page. And we have a list of tools here for interacting with your integration, as well as checking in on the status of those integrations and starting auth flows. So feel free to check those out afterwards. So this agent has one tool, which is to update records inside of the customer's CRM. And for today's demo, we're going to be using Salesforce. So here's the prompt that we give to our agent. We tell it that it is an expert case triage agent who will analyze Salesforce cases to determine their severity and provide concise summaries. We provide the relevant Ampersand environment variables. We give it some instructions as to how best to review the case, how to classify it, how to generate a summary, and then some guidelines on how it should communicate, as well as how it should update our record using the Update Record tool provided by the Ampersand AI SDK. So this is our agent, pretty straightforward. And in the same repo, you'll also see a folder called AMP. So this is a YAML file that has defined the integration. So every Ampersand integration is defined in a YAML syntax like this, where you are telling us what tools you want to integrate with. So in this case, it's Salesforce, and what you want to do. So here we are subscribing to cases that have been created. And when there is a case, we want to give it the ID, the subject, and the description. So our agent is actually going to be a webhook listener that will listen to these subscribe actions that are coming from Ampersand. If you've never worked with Salesforce before, you might not know this, but Salesforce doesn't actually have a webhook API out of the box. So normally, if you're building an integration yourself, you can't actually get updates in real time. You'll have to do maybe a bulk batched polling type of a read for a particular time interval. And we at Ampersand have actually come up with a way to get real-time subscriptions from Salesforce. So it's pretty cool, and you can get it by just writing a YAML file like this.
Yeah, I know we previously at Mastra, for those of you that have followed the story, we were building at one point before Mastra, trying to build a CRM, and we spent a lot of time dealing with Salesforce and understand that there are some complexities, we'll say, just, little complexities with dealing with their data and their API.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm preaching to the choir here,
I don't know about the rest of those watching live. Well, I guess let us know in the chat if you have played around with the Salesforce API and what you think of it.
So let's see it in action. So if you haven't used Salesforce before, it looks something like this. This is the cases view. I get to see all of my open cases. So we're going to go ahead and add a new case for our agent to process. So everything is in French on our website. We don't know why, but we've noticed that our entire instance of the platform is displaying everything in French, dashboard settings, error messages. We didn't make any language changes on our end. This is affecting all users at our fake company FlexFleet, including new signings and incognitos, blocking our team from using the product effectively. So let us go ahead and, I forgot to include origin. We got this through email. So let's go ahead and create that case. So what's going to happen now is this will go through Ampersand. We're going to catch this new case. We will send it to our agent, which for our demo purposes, we've deployed on Railway. And then this agent, which is a Mastra agent that we've built, will then use the Ampersand AI SDK update record tool to now summarize our case. So let's see. Our agent has now come back with a summary. It's prioritized it as medium, which maybe it's medium because the French population can still use it. So it is now saying that the entire platform is displaying in French, affecting all Flex Fleet users and blocking effective product use despite no language changes. So that was pretty cool. We've instantly gotten the update from Salesforce, and our agent was able to go and process it. So now our human support team can go ahead and triage that.
Awesome. So essentially the way it works is, through your webhook magic, it triggers the webhook, which calls the agent, and then the agent will then create the summary, add a severity, and then just go ahead and update this case automatically.
Yep, you got it.
Awesome.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So that was our AI SDK, and all of the tools that we've exposed are also exposed in our MCP server. So as a Mastra builder, you basically have two ways of interacting with Ampersand. The first is what I just showed here in this code snippet right here. You can directly import from our AI SDK the different tools we expose. Alternatively, the other thing you could do is use our MCP server. And there's actually already documentation on the Mastra docs under tools and MCP. If you flip on over to the Ampersand tab, you'll see that this is how you can add the Ampersand MCP server.
Can you give us a zoom on this one too?
Yes.
Awesome.
Will do.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, okay, if I use the MCP server, then how do because I'm assuming there's a way then to configure what tools actually show up in that MCP server? Or does that get, how do I then, if I only wanted to have access to Salesforce, for instance, do I get all the tools by default? Is there a way to specify that? How does that work?
Yeah, so currently you do get access to all the tools by default. But this is a great feature request that we will address in our very next update.
Well, I mean, I do think also though, if you were to, call on this, you were to call await tools, you get the list, and you could then selectively only pass in the ones you want to the agent. So so I think there's ways around it. There's easy workarounds, but maybe maybe there are other ways to make it easier. But I think that I don't think we're necessarily there's pretty easy ways to control what tools your agents get, but it is pretty cool. So by doing this, then I get access to all the tools that Ampersand provides.
That's correct. And then using the AI SDK, you do actually get to pick which tools you want. So you'd only import the tools here that you want your agent to get access to. And you would put them in this block right here.
Awesome. So you have a little bit of flexibility when you're building out your agent. If you want to give your agent additional capabilities, connect to different services, you have a few different ways to do it depending on how you're architecting your app or how you want it to actually work.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. For anyone that's in the chat watching this, let us know what you think. Let us know what kind of tools you want your agents to have. I'm sure Ampersand already has them. You can just wire it up and be off and running.
Yeah, definitely. So for those that are watching, there's a few things where you can get involved, and we would love to hear from you. The first is if you go to our GitHub, you'll see a number of open source repos. The two that are the most exciting is one, our connectors repo. So we've open sourced all of our connectors, and you can browse this here for how we're calling the various APIs. And there's some more information here. You're also welcome to contribute a new connector if there's one that you really want for your agent, but we don't have it yet. You can make a pull request. You can file issues here if there's any that you want to request for. And the other repo that I will call your attention to is our AI repo. So this is the one that we just launched today. So this has the source code for both our MCP server as well as our AI SDK. And also welcome to file issues, make contributions. We'd love to hear from you.
Very cool. Yes. So, and for those of you that know, anytime we show these open source projects, we always say, go and give them a star. Go on GitHub, give them a star. While you're there, give Mastra a star if you haven't already. We don't mind having a few extra stars getting thrown around on GitHub.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was awesome.
it's very cool that all this is open source too. I think that's it's always nice to see, and I think having the connectors open source makes a lot of sense because a lot of times there are there obviously you have all the popular ones, right? Like any of them that are common you already have, and you've are very well supported, but there are probably some that are slightly less common but still maybe very important to us, some groups of people, and the ability for you to either request them or maybe even try it, take a crack at starting to implement them is a great thing. So awesome. So Lauren, is there anything else that we wanted to cover today?
The very last thing that I'll talk about is a little unrelated to building an agent, but I think still pretty helpful to most agent builders. And that is the headless UI library that we launched today. So up until this point, we have provided a UI library that will that has pre-built components that you can directly embed into your application, and this will help your user to both connect their SaaS application as well as configure the mapping and optional field selection. So this was really convenient and easy for builders that want to get up and running. But we got a lot of feedback that sometimes people want to customize the UI. And while we do offer some basic styling in our pre-built components, like customizing the colors and the fonts, you couldn't, for example, switch the order of the pages or completely redo how the layout looks. So what we also shipped today is the headless UI library. So this is a part of our Ampersand React NPM package. And it gives you all of the hooks and methods that you need to build your own UI. So this helps you with the state management. So a few things that it helps with is managing all of the connections. So knowing if a particular user has already connected to their SaaS application, or if you need to guide them through a new connection flow. You can also manage installations. So installation is our terminology for a connection that has configuration also. So this is the unit of integration that a customer is dealing with is called an installation. So you can manage that. You can even get some schema introspection. So you might know that a lot of CRMs and other tools have the ability to allow people to create custom objects and custom fields. And those you don't know about until the customer has connected their tool. So using our headless UI, you can also actually do a real-time schema introspection into all of the fields that exist in that customer's object. For example, what are all of the fields on their CRM account object? And then you can build UI and logic around it. We also help you do things like managing the reading configuration. So this is any field mappings that your customer wants to set up where they may have mapped a custom field to a particular concept. And then once they set the field mapping, we then in our reading and writing will normalize the data and send it to your application in a mapped way. So your application gets nice, clean data to deal with. And then we're dealing with all of the complexity, all of the mapping, all of the keeping track of all of the different schemas underneath the hood. So that was already available in our pre-built UI component. Now you can do that yourself in our headless UI also. And then writing back, we also have a lot of powerful features here. So when you're writing back to a particular SaaS application, like we did in the case Stripper demo, we wrote back an update to the Salesforce case. You can actually set default values. So in our app, we could have had the severity of the case set to, let's say, medium by default. So if we don't specify severity when we're writing back, it is just set to medium by default. You can set integer values, Boolean values. You can also configure what happens if your customer already has a particular field set. So let's say that a human actually went in that case before our AI agent was able to summarize it. Maybe the human was lightning fast, caught that case right away, already categorized it and already summarized it. We could then set this write on update setting to never. It means if something's already in that field, we're not going to overwrite it. So that's another way you can configure the write back, and you can put it all together. We also open sourced a demo app that showcases how you can build your own UI. So that's again available on GitHub, demo-headless. Also open source, MIT license, welcome contributions and issues. And yeah, and that's what I wanted to show today. So 3 exciting launches: headless, AI SDK, MCP. We love your GitHub stars.
Yes. So let's send some GitHub stars their way. Yeah, that's really cool. And even with the headless UI library, I know that, if you're building an application where you need your users to authenticate to a service, and then you want to have that connection, and then you want to use that, whether you're building an AI agent or you just need that data from some other purpose, I can see where, just using the pre-built gets you farther faster, but ultimately you might want the flexibility to being able to say, like, okay, I want to customize this to match my design, to match my, my style, right, of whatever the app is you're building. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely found that in general, where customers, when they're first starting out to build an integration, they want to do something quickly, get to market. And then as they're in market, as they get bigger customers, especially mid-market and enterprise customers, is when they find they'll have to think through how to make things more customized, how to own the user experience more, how to take advantage of some of our advanced features like field mapping, all of the advanced write options that I talked about. So it's definitely a journey where it starts out simple, but integrations can get complicated pretty quickly. And
Yes.
as I'm sure you know, building out the last CRM product.
Yeah, integrations are, they get messy.
Yes, definitely. And our mission at Ampersand is to really help developers along that whole journey to get them started and get their product to market really quickly, but also be with them as they are scaling, as they are going up market, as they are really expanding out their integration depth.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people watching this that are building AI tools, AI agents, and I think anything that we can do to help those people connect to different services more quickly, it's going to allow them to get farther a lot faster. So this is, tools like this are really helpful.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has been
Yeah.
really fun, and please check us out. And we have a Discord channel also. Sorry, Discord server.
Yeah.
So
What's the
we'd love
best? Is that the best way to keep up with what's going on with Ampersand?
Yes, definitely. So if you go to withampersand.com under this developer tab, there's a link to join our Discord community.
Awesome. So yeah, please, if you're interested in giving your agents superpowers with a whole bunch of different tools at once, go to the Discord, keep up with what they're all shipping at Ampersand. So thanks, Lauren. It was really great having you on, talking about all the launches. A lot of cool stuff coming out. And yeah, if you are building a Mastra agent, it's already in the docs. Just go to the MCP overview page in the docs. You can see that you can connect to Ampersand's MCP client very easily and get access to a whole bunch of tools. As Lauren also showed, there's other ways if you want to more directly control the tools that you're sending your agents. You can use their AI SDK and just pass in the tools that way.
Thanks so much for having me today, Shane.
Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.
See ya. All right, everybody. That was a good, solid AI agents hour. We talked some AI news. we talked about the Mastra 101 course, which I think is the world's first course as an MCP server. So check that. Go back and watch the recording on YouTube if you want to see that. Otherwise, just go to mastra.ai/course and try it out for yourself. And we talked with Lauren from Ampersand around how they're making it much easier for you to pass a whole bunch of different tools into your agents and kind of giving your agents access to a whole bunch of different services really easily. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time on AI Agents Hour. Goodbye.